Welcome, friend. You are not here by accident. Some stories find us when we need them most. This one might whisper something you've longed to hear. Lean in and let's begin. Have you ever poured your entire being into something only for it to vanish like smoke, leaving nothing but an echoing void? A void that whispers, you are not enough, even when you have given everything? This is the story of Elara and how she discovered that true fulfillment isn't found in what we grasp, but in what we release. Elara was a quiet brilliance, a constellation of potential dimmed by perpetual overshadowing. From a young age, she believed her existence was an inconvenience, a discordant note in the otherwise harmonious symphony of her family. Her parents, already seasoned by 3 older, boisterous children, had met her with a weariness that felt like neglect, a casual detachment that chilled her to the bone. While her siblings thrived in the warmth of their parents' attention, their laughter echoing through the large, otherwise silent house, their achievements celebrated with fanfare, Elara felt like a shadow, perpetually on the periphery, desperately yearning for the spotlight of their affection. She was always trying to please them, to earn a smile, a single word of praise, a simple acknowledgement of her worth. She excelled in school, bringing home impeccable grades, hoping her academic triumphs would finally make her enough. She pored over textbooks late into the night, her mind ablaze with a fierce determination to prove herself. Yet when she proudly presented a perfect report card, her parents' eyes would skim it, then settle on a minute imperfection. "Why didn't you get a higher score?" was their common refrain, ignoring her top percentile ranking to focus on a slight dip in percentage, leaving her feeling detested for what she wasn't, never appreciated for what she was. The sting of their indifference was a constant companion, a dull ache beneath her ribs. Her father, a formidable man with a passion for football, had played in high school, his tales of gridiron glory a frequent topic at the dinner table. Elara, despite her own quiet adoration for the graceful dynamism of basketball, traded her court shoes for football cleats. She pushed her lithe body through grueling practices, forcing herself to learn the jarring tackles and strategic plays of a sport that felt utterly alien to her. Every bruised muscle, every scraped knee was a silent offering, a desperate plea to make him proud. But her family never showed up to a single game, their absence a louder statement than any words, a gaping void in the bleachers where their faces should have been. She would scan the crowd, her heart sinking with each unfulfilled hope, the cheers of other parents for their children a painful counterpoint to her own silent disappointment. Her siblings, 16, 18, and 23 when she was born, saw her as little more than a nuisance. They handed down their clothes and possessions, rarely bought her anything significant, and never allowed her to hang out with them, their lives a closed circle she was excluded from. Elara felt like a piece of paper, adopted for a time, then carelessly discarded, banished from their minds, relegated to an emotional basement where she was out of sight for them and thus less significant and important. This relentless striving, this futile pursuit of external validation had left her hollowed out, perpetually confused and brimming with an inner emptiness that threatened to consume her. She felt worthless, like a crumpled bill, no matter how hard she tried to smooth out the creases. The turning point arrived on her 16th birthday, a day that should have marked celebration, but instead became an unraveling. Her older siblings, who no longer lived at home, were present, their visits sporadic and often perfunctory. Her mother, ever busy with a whirlwind of social engagements, was only there briefly, a hurried kiss on the cheek before she departed for the evening. It was just Elara and her father for most of the day. Elara, still clinging to a sliver of irrational hope, woke up before dawn to cook him breakfast, bringing it to his bedside. She had spent weeks saving her meager allowance to buy him a thoughtful, though budget-conscious, tie, a carefully chosen pattern that mirrored his eye color. She meticulously completed all the chores, scrubbing the kitchen until it gleamed, tidying the living room to an impossible perfection. His response was a perfunctory, pathetic thank you, accompanied by an unmistakable desire for her to leave him alone, his gaze already fixed on the morning newspaper. The air in the room thickened with a familiar, suffocating silence.
Later, at the family dinner, the familiar pattern reasserted itself with brutal clarity. Laughter, boisterous connection, and effortless joy flowed amongst her parents and siblings, their shared anecdotes and inside jokes weaving a tapestry of belonging that left Elara on the periphery, an unnoticed observer. She picked at her food, the clinking of cutlery and the murmur of conversation, a dissonant backdrop to her own silent despair. This was the case with almost all family dinners they had ever attended. Back home, the dam broke. A wave of raw, unbidden emotion overwhelmed her. She didn't know what triggered it, perhaps the stark contrast between their vibrant happiness and her own silent despair, or the crushing weight of another ignored effort. Her vision blurred with tears, hot and scalding. When they, startled by her sudden, silent weeping, finally asked what was wrong, she unleashed years of suppressed anguish. The words, sharp and bitter, tumbled out, a torrent of pain she had never dared to voice. "I wish you had aborted me or given me up for adoption if you hate me so much," she cried, the shocking truth hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. Her elder sister began to speak, her face etched with surprise and a hint of concern. But Elara didn't wait. She fled to her room, burying herself in the solace of Hans Zimmer's orchestral escapism, the rhythmic knocking on her door a futile attempt to penetrate the wall she had just erected. She felt as though she had finally given up on her family, acknowledging that she had spent enough time trying to please them. In the pre-dawn hours, the house hushed in a fragile peace. She slipped out her window. The cool, crisp air was a balm against her fevered skin. She walked until she reached a secluded spot near an old, gnarled oak tree, a hidden sanctuary where she often sought refuge, guitar in hand. Now just pacing, listening to the rustle of leaves, trying to process the enormity of her confession. She sat down, pulling her phone from her pocket, the blue light illuminating her tear-streaked face. "I'm sitting down here right now writing this on my phone at 4:30 a.m. and don't know what to do at all. I'm sorry if I just went on a rant, but this is the first time that I'm able to tell my childhood to anyone. Now, how exactly do I tackle this problem? I have pretty much given up on my family and have spent enough of my time trying to please them. Do I still try to form any kind of bond with them? Do I completely drop them off? What exactly is the best thing to do here?" She was at a crossroads, where the past offered only pain, in the future, an intimidating blank slate. The journey ahead was uncertain, shrouded in the mists of self-doubt, that real dragon within her. She felt mired in a slump. Reading inspirational stories felt like an internet hug for the soul, but she couldn't quite connect to their spark for change. Days bled into weeks. Elara remained adrift, grappling with the chasm she had opened. The initial surge of defiant relief gave way to a deeper, more profound emptiness. She scrolled endlessly for distractions, indulged in comfort food, but nothing lifted her spirits. The wound of her childhood neglect festered, leaving her with the heavy question, what to do next? She longed for a sense of purpose, something to fill the gnawing void inside her. One gray morning, as Elara sat by the old oak in her secluded spot, she reflected on the words from a forgotten online article she had once skimmed. "Every single person on the planet has a story. Don't judge people before you truly know them. The truth might surprise you." She had always focused on her own story of neglect, her own pain. But what if her family, too, had a story she didn't know? It was a fleeting thought, quickly dismissed, but it planted a minuscule seed of curiosity. Later that week, walking through the high street, her eyes fell on a notice board outside a local community center. It advertised for volunteers at a soup kitchen. It was far removed from her privileged, yet emotionally barren world, a place where people were clearly struggling, not with emotional voids, but with hunger, cold, and the harsh realities of life. She hesitated. What could she, a lost teenager with a fractured heart, possibly offer? She felt like a crumpled $20 bill, stomped on and dirty, questioning her own value. But the sheer emptiness inside her compelled her to act, to escape the suffocating silence of her own home. She went. Her first shift was awkward, a clumsy ballet of fumbled ladles and spilled soup. She felt like an imposter, serving food to strangers, constantly battling the ingrained urge to seek approval, to perform perfectly, to be more. She was acutely aware of her own middle-class upbringing, the stark contrast to the lives of those she served. But here, no one judged her grades or her chosen sport. No one asked why she wasn't more of anything. They simply accepted the warm plate she offered, their eyes holding a raw hunger that transcended judgment. It was a novel sensation, this absence of expectation, this quiet acceptance. She started to truly see the faces before her, the lines etched by hardship, the flicker of gratitude in their eyes. There was a quiet dignity in their struggle, a stark contrast to the invisible battles she fought in her gilded cage. One elderly woman, frail but with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, took Elara's trembling hand as she passed her a bowl of stew. "Thank you, dear," she whispered, her voice raspy. "This warmth, it's not just the soup, is it?" Elara felt a surprising tremor, a flicker of something new within her. It was the first time an action, not an achievement, had felt truly meaningful, truly felt. It was a tiny spark, but it resonated with the same quiet power as the 10-year-old boy who left a tip for his waitress, an act of pure, unsolicited kindness. This small act of service, this seemingly insignificant gesture, began to chip away at the walls Elara had built around her heart. It was a subtle process, not a sudden revelation. She found herself returning to the soup kitchen, not because she sought praise, but because a strange sense of purpose was starting to fill the void. The idea of karma yoga, the path of selfless action, where one performs duties without attachment to results, began to unconsciously manifest in her life. She was simply acting, offering service not for personal gain or reward, but as an offering to the simple, raw human need before her. This was a profound shift from her past, where every action was meticulously calculated for approval, every effort a desperate bid for love. She encountered numerous challenges: difficult volunteers who snapped under pressure, overwhelming shifts where the queue seemed endless, moments of fatigue where her old urge to give up resurfaced, whispering that it was all pointless. Yet she found herself shaking off these problems, learning from them, and stepping up, just like the donkey in the story that kept rising higher with each load of soil poured upon it. She was learning to navigate adversity, not by succumbing to it or becoming hardened and bitter, but by transforming her internal response to her environment. She wasn't turning soft like the potato, nor hardening like the egg, but like the unique coffee beans, she was changing the water around her, creating something new and positive from challenges. What was truly beginning to matter was what was happening within her inner resilience growing with each selfless act. Her previous failures to gain her family's approval had conditioned her to believe she couldn't break free from that desperate desire. She had been like the elephant, held by a small rope of past conditioning, believing she couldn't escape. But here, in this new context, she was trying without the crushing weight of external expectation, and in doing so, she was slowly breaking the invisible ropes that had held her captive. Failure, she was dimly realizing, was truly part of learning, a stepping stone rather than a permanent barrier. Every obstacle, she began to see, was not a dead end, but an opportunity to improve her condition. Like the boulder in the road that yielded a purse of gold for the one willing to move it. She started spending her days wisely, treating each of the 86,400 seconds credited to her Time bank account each morning as a precious deposit. Instead of wasting them in endless scrolling or self-pity, she invested them in service, in learning, in quiet reflection. Time management, she found, wasn't about having enough time, but about deciding her priorities. And her priority was shifting from external seeking to internal giving, from consuming emptiness to purposeful abundance.
Elara found solace in the steady rhythms of service, her hands busy, her mind slowly quieting. The constant clamor of her internal dialogue, the desperate pleas for validation began to recede, replaced by a gentle hum of purpose. She observed the quiet resilience of the people she served, many of whom faced far greater hardships than her own. Their dignity, their gratitude for small acts of kindness, began to reshape her perception of suffering and strength. She recalled the story of Sean Swarner, the cancer survivor who summited Mount Everest, covering the globe with inspiration, whose ultimate goal was to inspire people to dream big and never give up. Elara wasn't climbing literal mountains, but she was slowly, painstakingly, climbing out of her own internal chasm, driven by a quiet, burgeoning hope. She started to write in a small, leather-bound journal, not about her pain, but about the small moments of connection, the faces she remembered, the snippets of stories she glimpsed from the people she served. It was a way to process her experiences, to express herself by writing, something she had always enjoyed but suppressed. This act of writing, of creative expression, became a subtle form of healing, a therapy, spirituality, and a source of healing power, much like Aaron Robinson found in music after overcoming abject poverty. She saw how words, when chosen thoughtfully, could transform her outlook, just as the blind beggar's sign was rephrased to change his fortune. The new sign simply stated, "It is a beautiful day and I can't see it." She began to consciously cultivate positive self-talk, replacing the insidious internal whispers of worthless with affirmations of quiet purpose, of inherent value. This built her inner strength and resilience, a self-love that was independent of external approval. The concept of duty began to resonate differently within her. It wasn't about pleasing others for a specific reward, but about recognizing her unique role and responsibilities, carrying them out with dedication and sincerity, her own dharma. She was embracing this, not as a warrior on a battlefield, but as a silent servant in a bustling kitchen. This detached action, this commitment to her role, was slowly purifying her mind. She learned to maintain mental equanimity, remaining calm and balanced whether a shift went smoothly or descended into chaos. This was the even-mindedness that was true yoga, remaining unaffected by external circumstances, whether success or failure. One particularly busy afternoon, a young man, barely older than her, approached the counter. His eyes held a familiar, distant pain, a hardened shell she recognized from her own past self. He looked at her, not with gratitude, but with a flicker of resentment, as if her compassionate presence was an unspoken accusation. Elara felt a pang of her old insecurity, the familiar urge to retreat, to defend herself. But then she remembered the lesson she had taken to heart. Don't judge people before you truly know them. The truth might surprise you. She also recalled the story of the old woman with the arthritic hand who, despite her own affliction, reached out to Molly, a child facing terminal illness, showing pure compassion. This was about interconnectedness. Even those suffering can give and receive, and true connection bypasses judgment. Instead of reacting to his perceived judgment, Elara simply met his gaze with quiet empathy.
her own expression calm and open, placing a warm meal in his hands. It was a small act, but it felt immense, a testament to her internal shift. She was acting with universal love and compassion, key themes of karma yoga. This experience deepened her understanding of detachment. It wasn't about being indifferent or uncaring, but about performing the action for its own sake, for the benefit of others, without clinging to the emotional outcome or the need for a specific positive response. This was hard. Her deep-seated need for approval from her family had trained her to crave results, to measure her worth by external reactions. But gradually, as she kept showing up, kept serving, kept giving without expectation, the internal craving diminished. She found that the internal journey itself, the act of doing her best without attachment, was inherently fulfilling and satisfying. This selfless service, this commitment to her dharma, was transforming mundane activities into acts of devotion, leading to inner peace. Months later, as the seasons turned, Elara received an unexpected phone call. It was her elder sister, her voice strained and uncharacteristically quiet. "Dad's ill," she said, the words heavy with unspoken meaning. "He's in the hospital. He's asking for you." A cold knot formed in her stomach. The old wounds, the feelings of neglect, the bitter outburst, the years of silent suffering, they all rushed back with a visceral force. Her first, most primal instinct was to say no, to completely drop them off as she had contemplated in her raw despair. Why should she go? They had never truly cared for her, never nurtured her spirit. This was her moment of ultimate reckoning, the dragon of self-doubt and old pain rearing its head, demanding she succumb to its fiery breath. But a different thought surfaced, one imbued with her newfound perspective. Her father was ill. He was asking for her. This wasn't about her need for their love, not about gaining something that had always been denied. This was about his need for her presence, a simple human act of caring. She had learned, through countless quiet moments of service, that actions, particularly those of compassion, were often far more meaningful than words. She remembered Ron Link's story about how giving, sharing, and caring were truly what mattered in life, eclipsing superficial desires. This was her duty, her dharma in this moment, regardless of the painful past. She would perform this action without attachment to the result, without hoping for a sudden apology or a long-awaited declaration of love, but simply as an offering, a service, a quiet act of universal love. She went to the hospital. Her father, pale and weakened, lay in the sterile room. Her sister was there, quiet and subdued, her usual vivacity dimmed by worry. Elara sat beside him, not forcing conversation, just being present. She took his hand, a hand that had never truly held hers in affection, but now accepted her touch, clinging to it weakly. She spoke softly, not of the past's grievances, but of simple things, the clear sky outside, a quiet memory of a distant summer, a shared anecdote from years ago that surfaced unbidden. It was no grand reconciliation, no tearful apologies, no dramatic confessions. There didn't need to be. Elara was acting, not for a reward, not for the outcome, but for the inherent rightness of the act itself. She was there because it was the right thing to do, her heart free from the chains of expectation. She had let go of the desperate need for them to acknowledge her worth, because she had finally found it within herself. This was her liberation from the bondage of past karma, the freeing of herself from desires for personal gain and the endless cycle of seeking validation. She saw him not as the father who neglected her, but as a human being in need of comfort, a fleeting soul at a vulnerable moment. In that quiet hospital room, amidst the soft beeping of machines,
Elara found her truest peace. It wasn't a peace granted by external validation, by the love she had always yearned for. It was a profound, unshakable peace cultivated from within, born from the act of selfless giving. She had transformed, not by gaining the love she had always craved from her family, but by letting go of the desperate need for it. She had finally understood that the only thing that truly matters is what happens within us, not the external circumstances or reactions. The crushing weight of a lifetime of seeking approval lifted, replaced by the profound lightness of simply being and giving. Elara's journey was not a dramatic burst of light, a sudden, blinding revelation. It was a slow, quiet dawn, each selfless act a new ray, gradually illuminating her inner world. She continued her work at the community center, her contributions no longer fueled by a desperate need for external validation, but a serene, joyful commitment to selfless service. She became a source of kindness and strength for others, her words carefully chosen, her presence calming, her empathy a guiding light.
She learned to embrace her true nature, acting according to her inherent self, knowing that disciplined, detached action led to liberation, a state of spiritual freedom and the realization of her true self. She didn't magically acquire a perfect family, nor did her childhood cease to exist. The scars remained, but they no longer defined her. Instead, she had changed her piece of carpet from one of self-pity and yearning to one of self-love and appreciation, carrying it with her wherever she went, creating a sense of home within herself. She now viewed obstacles as opportunities, not impenetrable dead ends, embodying the spirit that every challenge holds a potential reward. She understood with unshakable clarity that her inherent value never decreased, no matter how life crumpled her, how it stomped on her, or ground her into the dirt. She recognized that time management is yours to decide how you spend the time, just as with money, you decide how you spend the money. It is never the case of us not having enough time to do things, but the case of whether we want to do them and where they fall in our priorities. Her priority had irrevocably shifted from external seeking to internal giving, from consuming emptiness to purposeful abundance. Elara's story is a whispered invitation, a gentle nudge to look inward, to explore the landscape of your own spirit. Are you too clinging to beliefs that bind you simply because you failed once before? Like the elephant, tethered by a childhood rope, believing it cannot break free? Are you waiting for external circumstances to grant you peace, when true fulfillment blossoms from within, nurtured by your own actions and intentions? Life will always throw boiling water at you. You can be the potato, turning soft and weak in the face of adversity. You can be the egg, hardening in bitterness and resentment. Or you can choose to be the unique coffee bean, transforming the very adversity around you, changing the water itself, and creating something new, rich, and inspiring. The choice, as Elara discovered, is always yours. What happens within you is all that truly matters. The path of selfless action, of duty performed without attachment, is not about grand public gestures. It is seamlessly woven into the fabric of our everyday lives. It is in the quiet acts of kindness, the decision to show up, the courage to let go of what we cannot control. It is about understanding that your true worth is unshakable, an internal flame that no external wind, no matter how harsh, can extinguish. So what will you do with the 86,400 seconds you are credited each morning? Will you chase fleeting validations, desperately seeking what you believe you lack? Or will you invest in the boundless treasury of inner peace, drawing from an endless wellspring of self-worth? Will you break free from the invisible ropes that hold you back, or will you remain stuck, believing you cannot? The world, in its vastness and complexity, awaits your unique contribution. Your transformation begins the moment you decide to act, not for what you might get, but for the sheer, transformative joy of giving, of simply being the change you wish to see. Let your life become a testament to the quiet, profound power of selfless love, shaping your own narrative one mindful action at a time. Thank you for staying till the end.